Welcome back to the Game of Thrones reviews, my beautiful geekies. I am sorry I was absent last week. There was a lot of moving pieces on the board in the last week's episode. But this episode, we need to talk about this. So we started the Rose Road. Jaime Lannister is reaping the spoils out of conquering the Tyrell's home, and Bronn is there with him. Bronn, the master of sass, is back, and he is so good in this episode. Their dynamic is still excellent, and their dynamic completely changes by the end, which we'll get to. But let's get to the things that are most interesting and that we need to analyze and theorize about, and there's the first scene in Winterfell where Littlefinger is giving this Valyrian steel sword to Bran, and it was a dagger that was meant to kill him. And now Bran accepts it, and Littlefinger tries to goad him into his side, into his favor, into looking at him as a good man, and then when he mentions the word chaos, Bran throws back at him, "Chaos is a ladder." And Littlefinger is kind of surprised by this, and not in a good way. He does not know how Bran noticed, he does not want Bran to notice, but I feel like Littlefinger would be a guy who would use this expression, but it's very clever of the show to only have him have used it once before with Varys in King's Landing when Bran was not ever around that. But they get interrupted after the surprise with Mira leaving, and Bran is all stoic and shit, and he thanks her like he doesn't care, and she leaves heartbroken, which I thought was very weird, but I think it will further Bran's character development, and I do think he did it for a reason. He wants Mira to detach herself from him, most likely, because he has seen something in the future, probably, of her maybe suffering or dying because she was by his side and whatnot, and it's very interesting that he deals the same exact way he did with Littlefinger, of all people, he does with Arya. Arya comes back to Winterfell, you have these two guards who don't believe she is who she says she is, and then she goes to the crypt to look at her father's statue, and Sansa greets her, and it's just so rewarding with every Arya scene so far in the season that we see such a different dynamic, and we see how much these characters have changed, and I love her new dynamic with Sansa, I love her new dynamic with Bran, and I love that they talk a lot about the list. This is a lot of foreshadowing here. Bronn even gives his dagger to Arya because he doesn't need it. It's wasted on a cripple. But I do think it serves as foreshadowing to say that Bran will probably be the one who kills Littlefinger as he's fighting with Sansa, struggling with her, and Sansa's not being able to kill him. That's most likely it. Is one of these three characters that is going to kill Littlefinger. But I do love that while they're in the crypt, Sansa asks Arya what's up, and they're catching up with each other. They're telling each other about their long stories. And again, I love how Arya deals with the situation. They're not overly sentimental, neither one of them, but they both need a hug, so much so that they hug in the beginning of the conversation and they hug by the end. But I do like that Sansa really doesn't believe that Arya has a kill list, or that she intends even or wants to kill the people she says she wants to kill, until Bronn mentions it and Sansa's like, oh shit, she was serious. And then when Brienne has more than one scene in an episode, which was awesome, and she actually speaks, Arya wants to train with her, she wants to spar, and they spar with each other after Brienne is kicking Podrick's ass a lot, and they're actually quite balanced with each other. Arya has a very different style, a very ducking away, turning away from your opponent's sword, and then just catching a blind spot and kill them then. And they have a very good sparring, they have a very good chemistry and dynamic, but all this is being observed by Sansa and Littlefinger. And while they're observing it, you have this look on Sansa, not necessarily of worrying about her sister, but really seeing that she is a completely different person. She saw that Bran was a completely different person, and it was awesome to see these three together. But we see that Sansa is probably thinking, I haven't changed much at all, which is a complete contrast to the 3 episodes of the season so far, and to even season 6, Sansa is a completely different person, and it's relatable, and it's obvious that she wouldn't see herself as a very different person, and I love that aspect. We go to Dragonstone and we have Jon Snow showing Daenerys that he has found a dragon glass inside the mountain. He shows this beautiful carvings of Dragonstone inside that I'm sure the set designers built, and it looks amazing. But we go to the most important and interesting aspect, is where he shows us these engravings on the wall that were made by the children and the first man who were there together, and they were not there to fight each other. They were not at war there like Daenerys theorized. They were there fighting together because they engraved also the White Walkers. They are there. That is proof for Daenerys that they are real and that she needs to fight them. As much as the first man and the children of the forest hated each other, they fought together because they knew they needed for this enemy. But yet Daenerys is strong-willed, much to her detriment, because she says to Jon Snow, I will help you. I will fight for you and your men of the North, but only after you bend the knee. And they have this very ideological conversation about Jon Snow being a very prideful character, because he won't bend the knee because the men of the North won't serve a king or queen, in this case, of the South. And she tells him, what is more important, your men's lives or your pride? Which we know to be true, that Jon Snow is a very prideful character, much to his detriment in sometimes. It has happened before, but also it is true that Jon Snow is only serving his people, and he told her what he believes his people think, at least, if it isn't what they actually do believe. And then they learned that their fleet was attacked and destroyed after they took Casterly Rock, and Daenerys is taking no more shits. She is angry at Tyrion, she is lashing out at everything and everyone, and she asks Jon Snow for advice. And Jon Snow gives her an advice that she wasn't expecting from a man like him. A man who puts his own beliefs aside and looks at things on a bigger spectrum. And I really did enjoy this scene. As well as I enjoyed the scene where Theon comes in to Dragonstone and he finds Jon and he's just shitting himself. And I knew Jon would spare him. Of course, he wouldn't kill him there anyway, but he would spare him because of what he did for Sansa. But I really just wanted to see Jon Snow just punch him in the face. Once, twice, 3 times maybe, but just punch him in the face. Please. And let's go to the last bit of the episode. These last 10 minutes, 11 even. Jaime Lannister and Bronn still full of sass, still talking to Dickon, which Jaime still mistakes him for Rickon, and when he corrects him, Bronn just bursts out laughing in one of the most genuine laughs of surprise I have seen recently in TV shows or movies. That was very well done. Master of Sass, Bronn, glad to have you back. But then they start hearing the sound of galloping horses coming in, and we see this huge horde of Dothraki running into their way. And I love just how they are preparing to go to battle, and then in comes Drogon, Daenerys on his back, and he starts burning the shit out of everything, and we see people just fuckity fuck, what is that? A fucking dragon, that's what that is. And I like how much cutaway shots we have to Dickon looking on, because just before the scene, we have him saying that that was his first battle last week's episode, and he fought men that he knew, and now he's fighting a fucking dragon in his second battle ever. Drogon is burning the shit out of everything, and I just love this shot of 3 random horses with no saddle or knights on just running away because they're like, fuck this shit, I'm not fighting a dragon, man. And it's all chaos and everything is burning, there's smoke covering the sky, and Jaime and Bronn are running away, just trying to run away from that dragon as fast and as far as they can, and then Jaime starts going into battle. So does Bronn, but he's more like a I'm going to run away, and if I have to fight, I will eventually fight type of guy. But Jaime, he does kill some Dothraki, and I'm not saying that Jaime should die here, I'm not saying the narrative calls for it, but the Dothraki are such fierce and imposing warriors that as good as Jaime is, he only has one hand, and I don't think he would be able to keep up with Dothraki using just one hand, especially being the left hand. But Bronn goes and gets the huge crossbow to fight the dragons. He shoots one and he misses, and then Daenerys is going straight at him with everything on fire, just burning horses, burning knights, burning everyone. And we have Tyrion looking on, just like in shock and appalled because he sees his men, the men of the Lannisters, just being burned and everyone just suffering so much. And we see Lannister men taking off their helmets and armors and they're just cooked meat inside and it's disgusting. And Daenerys goes straight at Bronn and Bronn shoots and he hits Drogon on the shoulder. But Drogon starts falling, but he turns out alright because he ends up being able to fly a little bit and land and he burns that huge crossbow down and Bronn just gets the fuck out of there. We don't see him anymore. And then Daenerys is trying to get the spear out of Drogon. So I think this is a very good sign that we won't necessarily have dragons dying. I also want to know now how many of those huge weapons does Cersei have, because we only saw one and now one was here, and I'm sure they can fabricate them, but it still makes you wonder, how many do they have? How many do they have in the making even? So Daenerys is trying to get the spear out of Drogon and Jaime comes in with a spear of his own. He's going to kill her, but as soon as Daenerys turns to him, Drogon comes into the frame in front of her. He's going to shoot fire and then someone jumps in and pushes Jaime out of his horse into the river and they both start falling in to the water as Drogon shoots fire and burns their horses and even more carriages. And the episode ends with Jaime just sinking in and looking on at the fire out there, I guess. So this was an excellent episode of Game of Thrones. Not as many moving pieces as last week's, but it's still great to see the dynamics so much change from last season's. We have so few people fighting. We have so few locations to go to in this episode. We only have basically 3 locations: Winterfell, Dragonstone, and Rose Road. And that's it. We go with one scene to King's Landing, but that's it. There's such a bigger spectrum now happening that Cersei has control of most of the territories, and now we don't need to shuffle in so many locations and go to so many different places, and we still do follow a lot of characters, but in a more condensed way, because a lot of these people are now together, which is great. Characters' dynamics changed, the stories progress, we have new allegiances, new strengths, new bonds given to those allegiances. This was a damn excellent episode. My favorite episode of the season so far. But what did you think of the episode 4 of Game of Thrones, my beautiful geekies, The Spoils of War? Let me know your thoughts, theories, analysis in the comments below. I can't wait to see next week's episode because it is called East Watch, and so we're most likely gonna get another 10-minute, if not longer, battle. Let me know all that in the comments below. Let me know what you want to see by the end of the season. Let me know if you would have changed anything about this episode in the comments. And once more, thank you so much for watching. You guys are the freaking best. I love you all from the bottom of my heart. Thank you all for everything. This week I have many reviews coming for you, so I can't wait to see you there. And until then, you stay beautiful, you stay geeky, and if you haven't done so yet, click the subscribe button and the bell so you can be geeky united!